Oh, yes, we are live on another episode of Five Rounds here on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Back to our regular Thursday night schedule. My fault we didn't have a Thursday night show last week. I was kicking it up down in Jamaica, having a great time, getting sunburned, drinking, and eating way too much. On this episode of Five Rounds, we will discuss the footage and the fallout, the video footage of Jon Jones's arrest in Las Vegas way back in September, but the video footage has just emerged, the reactions to it, what it has apparently cost him in his personal life. We're also going to look back at an awesome knockout this past weekend in the UFC and what should be a very important kind of lightweight fight, catchweight fight this coming weekend in Las Vegas. All that and more on this episode. I want to remind you, every episode of Five Rounds is served by the Quarterdeck Seafood Bar and Neighborhood Grill. Oh, the Quarterdeck is the official sports bar of Five Rounds and of Donno Daily. Find out why I have been raving about the Quarterdeck for over a decade. Guys, the seafood is absolutely delicious. I was down at the Quarterdeck yesterday, or up at the Quarterdeck relative to where I usually am. And guys, even if you are dieting like me, you can enjoy yourself. I built my own poke bowl, so fresh and so healthy. I also love the Asian chicken salad. And hey, if you're not dieting, the Quarterdeck is an awesome place to be as well. The chicken wings are so good. The buffalo shrimp, the burgers and sandwiches, the mahi-mahi. Oh, everything is so good. They have 2-for-1 happy hour all day, every day. The 2-for-1 drinks keep flowing all day at the Quarterdeck, and the beer is always cold. Guys, find out why the Quarterdeck is my favorite and the favorite of so many South Floridians, the favorite place to watch every UFC pay-per-view fight. March 5th, we have a big one, UFC 272. Colby Covington, Jorge Masvidal. You can watch it at the Quarterdeck for zero cover charge. You pay nothing at the door. How good is that? It's a great place to watch every big game and every big fight. If you want to visit their menu or just find the location nearest to you before you go, check them out online at quarterdeckrestaurants.com. The Quarterdeck, come for the food, stay for the fun. It's been a minute. I saw Frank the other day, so let me say hello to James Walker first. James, how you been?
Been great, man. It's been a couple weeks. You went to Jamaica. I went to Los Angeles for the Super Bowl. So glad to be back in the party.
Were there a lot of fighters out there? Because obviously Super Bowl, like a lot of athletes will show up, do interviews. Were there a lot of fighters out there?
No, not that I've seen, but I did hear of one fighter being there making the rounds. Now I'll give you guys a guess. Who's been making tons and tons of media rounds from the UFC's roster lately? I bet you guys can guess.
Colby Covington?
Close. Not close, but no.
Not close.
No,
not close. There goes. Come on, Usman.
All right, you're getting warmer. Someone, it's a champion. Someone who had a huge upset. What's been the biggest upset so far this year? Female.
Female.
What's her name?
Juliana Pena.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I heard Juliana Pena was making the rounds at Media Row, and continue her celebration and leading up to the Ultimate Fighter. So it's a little dual celebration there. She won a big fight and she's promoting her show. So that's what I heard anyway. But I didn't see it with my own eyes.
One of the biggest upsets in MMA history, I would say. Frank Zaffere. Now, Frank is going to be a big focus of this episode. I should have mentioned this.
I love it when it's all about me. Yeah,
it's all about Frank. So as we've talked about for many weeks on the show, Frank Zaffere, it's been a bucket list item of his. And he's in his 50s, by the way. So, we're getting towards the end of that bucket list. He has wanted to train like an actual professional MMA fighter. He does have a little bit of wrestling and jiu-jitsu in his background, like decades ago. He wanted to train like an MMA fighter, and he's going to do a fight at the end of this camp. You had your first training session the other day, Frank, and we're going to talk to both of your coaches. And hell, you've probably heard of his head coach, Dean Thomas, 9-time UFC veteran, is going to join us tonight around 7. Frank's other coach is a former UFC fighter.
No, not former
MMA. Former MMA fighter Brian Jackson, who's trained before with the likes of BJ Penn and Eddie Alvarez. He's in your training camp as well. How did you feel the first session went?
Well, look, when you want to make an omelet, you have to break some eggs. So, it was humbling. It was a little embarrassing, but also somewhat encouraging. So, it was all of those things. But I think the overarching feeling that I had was extreme anxiety because I have so much respect for Dean and for Brian. And so I just didn't want to waste everybody's time. But I was telling Alex, when we were together earlier this week, just the 30 minutes or so that happened that night, because we had to start late up there, gave me so much more perspective on the grind, the gruel, and the terror that is what these people do for a living. So just that little bit was that. But we're going to push it all the way through, and we're putting together a schedule, and it's exciting. So.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward. Obviously, we always look forward to talking to Dean, who joins us frequently, and I'm looking forward to talking to Brian Jackson because I got to ask him. Like, he's trained with BJ Penn, one of the greatest of all time. He's trained with Eddie Alvarez, a great champion. How does Frank Zaffere stack up against the likes of BJ and Eddie? We're going to find that out. But guys, I wanted to start this episode on, and this obviously this is not breaking news. What happened to Jon Jones back in September. And ironically enough, like legally, he's pretty much moved past this in his life. And so it must have been really frustrating for Jon. And obviously, I don't know what he did or didn't do to his fiance that night. So, if you could say he brought it on himself and he's been arrested several times, but I can kind of feel some compassion and sympathy for Jon, being that this arrest happened back in September. He's pretty much jumped over the legal hurdles already. And then the dash cam video surfaces, and he's got to relive this PR nightmare over and over again. So he was arrested on suspicion of domestic violence back in September. He ended up getting off with misdemeanor property destruction charge. And we're going to see the video of that in a minute. He headbutted the police car, a $750 fine, and a court order to attend anger management courses. And so this is, and I'm not going to play the whole thing because it's long, but I think a powerful excerpt from this. And what you're going to see here, if you haven't watched this Jon Jones dash cam footage, this is from one of the arresting officers whose body cam was on. You can see that this guy was in anguish. He's got demons. He's got troubles. And I know that shortly after this arrest, he vowed to give up alcohol. I don't know if he has stuck to that. I hope he has, because I think we've all had people in our lives that just can't handle it the way that other people do. Like, they get intoxicated, whether it's, for some people, there are certain drugs, alcohol, maybe the vice. Some people can hold their liquor and still be the same person. Other people become a different person and go to a very, very dark place. And I think it's safe to say that Jon Jones is one of the latter. So let me play you guys a little bit of this, and then I want to get your reaction. And again, like you can see a disturbed individual who's clearly not in a good place when this incident happened. Just got a buffer here for a second.
Oh, hang me, hurt me, and kill me. What did I do? Thank you. My fault. A black man can't drink. Getting elected into the Hall of Fame, and now this is what I got. Do you?
Relax. You all right? You all right? Relax. You have anything in your pockets, man?
What did I do?
Is it okay if we
What did I do? I'm a police officers. I hate you.
okay.
I hate you. I hate you.
So that last bit that you heard, I hope that came off well over the screen share. But that was the headbutt. That was the moment that he banged his head against the vehicle, and it's and to me, one of my takeaways, James, is this seems to validate something that Dana White was saying a couple months ago that, I don't know, it maybe sounded a little bit ridiculous to some people at the time, where he's just like, he wants to keep Jon away from Vegas. That like, and it almost like people kind of took it as a joke, like, oh, Dana White's like cracking a joke about Jon getting in trouble. But I think you can kind of understand it. Like, you put him in a city like that, and it's like you're enabling him.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think. I definitely had this thought before, but I don't know if I said this before. But with certain people, and Jon Jones is one of them, the same things that make him great in one particular area is the same thing that can be destructive. And as a fighter, he pushes the lines. He goes to the edge. He stretches the limits of creativity to do things that no one else has done. And in the octagon, and that's why you have arguably one of the greatest fighters of all time. Not arguably, but with that. But as a person in his personal life, he does the same things. He pushes the line. He stretches, the limits of where he should go, whether it's with alcohol or drugs or getting in trouble or domestic violence or all these things. And at some point, it's going to catch up to him. For most people, it would have caught up to him already. They would have been in jail. Career would have been over, things like that. But for Jon Jones, he's been fortunate enough to still be able to be a free man and do what he loves to do. But you just wonder at what point will enough be enough, and as he keeps getting in trouble. But I think if you take that aspect away from him, he probably isn't as great a fighter as he would have been if you take that pushing the limit part of his personality away from him. So someone just needs to kind of reel it in, or he needs to kind of reel it in. I think the best motivation is self-motivation. And I just don't know if he's self-motivated to be a better person. Obviously, he has a self-motivation to be a great fighter and all those things. But outside the octagon, I think really he can get some help, but really he has to do some of the work, at least a little bit of the work, if not most of the work, to be a better person. And so far, he hasn't done that.
I have a couple of thoughts. One is I find it fascinating in our culture that it's when a video comes out that we suddenly become much, much more concerned about what happened.
Ray Rice.
I don't know why that is, but yeah, right. It actually saddens me a bit because I felt like not us on this show, but I felt like the public in general was able to move past his arrest quite quickly when it happened and accepted the explanation and thought, it's probably an overreaction. And then the video comes out. And it's being made into a really, really big deal. And on that side of it, I'd like to come to Jon Jones' defense. It shouldn't happen often, but most people have had a bad drunk moment, and you'll say some really stupid stuff that are not reflective of who you are or how you feel. And he's a bad drunk, obviously, and had way too much to drink and got caught on camera. You're on camera when you're in front of police officers now, and that's not. I just don't believe that's reflective of who he is. I just think he drank way too much and, was acting like a stupid drunk guy, like any of us would act if you've had way, way too much to drink and would hope we're not videotaped. Having said that, on what James was just saying, being a bad drunk is one thing. I think he might also just be a bad guy. And that side of it exhibits itself in his sober behavior. I think he pushes the limits on staying within the rules. I think he's a nasty person. I think it was reflected really well by ESPN when he was facing Daniel Cormier that time. So I think he's just I don't know. There's a couple of elements to it, being really, really drunk and getting caught on camera, that sucks, but I'm not going to really judge you on that one. Yeah. But, some of the other stuff he's done. So I think we might be making more about this than we should. And but I don't want to exonerate him because clearly he's on a self-destructive path. I just don't think that video is evidence of that. I think that video is more evidence of somebody who just got hammered and was saying stupid stuff.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Because like you're saying, this is not the most serious thing he's been arrested for. He had the hit and run incident. He had some drunk driving incidents. He had, which wasn't an arrest, but a positive cocaine test in the UFC. So he's got other demons. There's no question about that. And it's actually remarkable, Frank, and I'll start with you on this one, that despite so many issues and so many points in time where he had to take long hiatuses from his career because of legal trouble and personal trouble, I could still look at his career and say he's probably the best and most successful to ever do this, despite all the other demons that have come into play. How much do you think he would have an even greater legacy, or how much greater would his legacy should be, I think is the better way to phrase it, if not for all the personal stuff? And for me, when I look at this as a fight fan, I'm not saying if I had a daughter or something that, I'd want her to find a guy like this to settle down with. I'm not saying anything like that, but I will say that I can kind of separate the off the field or the outside the cage stuff when I evaluate that person as a fighter. And I think he's the very best overall to ever do it. But he's missed big chunks of time in his career, and it may have affected the way he's trained at certain points, right? Like that first Gustafsson fight, how he basically said, basically high, the entire training camp. How much better could he have been? So how much greater, Frank, could his legacy be if not for this other stuff?
Well, I love the way you phrase that because it is remarkable that I think it might not even be debatable that he's the greatest to do the sport. But I'm sure somebody would debate me. But and
Yeah.
despite all of the issues and the inner demons and the mistakes, he still holds that position. So that is remarkable. But the loser here, in terms of what would be if he were not plagued with problems, is the UFC, because Jon Jones would be the LeBron James, or going back a few years, would have
Yes,
been the MJ of the sport. He would have been the thing
easily.
that took us mainstream. It would have been,
Ah.
he would have had the Nike deal or whatever, and he would have been in all the commercials. They would have been doing, Peyton Manning commercials and with LeBron in it and Jon Jones. Like, he would have found his way into all those spots, and the UFC would have benefited enormously from that. And I wonder if that's why they let him get away with all this stuff. Not just because he's such a great fighter, but because they are holding out some residual hope that he could resurrect that, that ability to maybe break out into the kind of mainstream platforms that the other major sports stars enjoy. But the UFC is the big loser.
Yeah, those are all extremely good points. Now, I'll make another different point, Alex. You said that it hasn't really caught up to him, but it's not too late. He still wants to get into the cage. He's in his 30s now. This is the time you can get away with a lot of that stuff in your 20s and maybe even your early 30s, partying and doing drugs and not training hard and stuff like that. He's going to take a big step, one of the riskiest steps of his career. If his life isn't together, I could easily see him losing a step or two and really suffering for it. And not seeing the same Jon Jones that we've seen in the past. And also, I'm a little surprised that maybe I appreciate your empathy, but I don't have as much empathy for Jon Jones at this point than you guys. I'm kind of run out of gas with that. Like, how many chances does he get? And also, you got to consider these are the things that he got caught for. Imagine all the nights that he didn't get caught doing bad stuff, silly stuff, reckless stuff. I'm sure there were dozens of other nights that he didn't get arrested, that maybe he done some things that he shouldn't have done. So man, I'm kind of out of gas on the the Jon Jones thing. I was at the time in September, with that arrest. I was just like, man, it's almost like an annual thing now. So like I said, he needs to be motivated himself to get his life together, because without that, doesn't matter how much help you get or how much outside help, it's just not going to matter.
Well, and apparently this incident has cost him a big price to pay in his personal life, because apparently his fiance has broken up with him, and he says she's not coming back. He told his haters to have a toast. He's completely miserable, and I get it, because he's been with this woman, or had been with this woman, for many years, and she had been with him throughout all of the other legal trouble. Now, in this case, she was more directly involved with it. Let me read another detail from his arrest from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. And by the way, the video that we played earlier is courtesy of Las Vegas Review-Journal as well. Jones' arrest early on the morning of September 24th stemmed from a 911 call placed by Caesars Palace Security after Jones' fiance approached hotel staff seeking assistance. Attending officers reported that Jones' fiance had blood on her clothing and a swollen lip when they arrived, and that while she claimed that Jones did not hit her, officers also said she appeared scared to return to her room or even to discuss the situation. Misdemeanor domestic battery charges against Jones were later dropped as part of a reported plea agreement in which Jones agreed to plead no contest to destroying property of another. That was the police car. In the days following the incident, Jones posted a video to his Instagram of he and his fiance kissing, and apparently reconciled. That video has also since been deleted, and he claims that she did break up with him. So this has been a life-changing incident for him. And so, yeah, I want to move on from that before we get into a new edition of the Toss-Up, which we're going to talk in the Toss-Up about the upcoming fight this weekend, which I like it a lot. Islam Makhachev against very short notice replacement Bobby Green. Just fought 2 weeks ago. Beat Nasrat Haqparast just 2 weeks ago. Didn't take a lot of damage in that fight, so he was able to make the quick turnaround. As a late replacement opponent. So I'm looking forward to this coming weekend. Islam Makhachev, as you guys know, is one of my favorites. But I also want to look back to this past weekend, because Jamal Hill put on an absolute highlight freaking reel KO of Johnny Walker. Not a long fight, 255 of the first round. You saw some good technique, some competent striking. You saw the way that Hill was backing Johnny Walker down. I thought his strategy of making an aggressive guy like Walker move backwards was perfect, and he puts him out. And guys, unfortunately for Johnny Walker, because you talk about empathy. I feel empathy for him, and I know even Jamal Hill felt empathy as well, because Johnny Walker had this like really, for lack of a better word, comical reaction to the knockout punch, like the way his head sprung up and his body stiffened. And you know what happens when you have a knockout loss like that in 2022? You become a meme. So unfortunately for him, he became a meme, and Jamal Hill actually put out an Instagram video, Frank, in Johnny Walker's defense. Like, as you don't know what we go through. Like, I hit this guy really hard. Thankfully, he's okay. Most of you guys don't know what it's like to get knocked out, concussed, what effect that can have on your body. So it's like, I can go back as far as like around 2008, 2009, when Rashad Evans became a meme, when Lyoto Machida knocked him out, and he was it looked like a corpse, like how brutalized he was. And I felt bad for Rashad Evans at that time. I feel bad for Johnny Walker now, but it was an incredible victory though for Jamal Hill. What did you think of it, Frank?
Look, I'm waiting for a star to be born in this division. I mean, maybe this could be the person. I mean, it's striking to me, pun intended, that that division, there's money in puns, that division is so devoid of any interesting marketable talent right now. But somebody on a multi numbered knockout streak is interesting, and that was all the hype going into the fight. Would he get another knockout, and would it be in quick, violent fashion? And he delivered. It's hard to do that, so I'm super impressed with him, and I just hope we can get some more interest back in this. This is the glamour division, guys. I can't get over it. I feel like the old guy who reminisces on when they used to play football the right way, or whatever. But I just miss, the Chuck Liddell, Rampage Jackson era of, the UFC, Randy Couture. I mean, it was Tito Ortiz. It was like all we wanted to watch. And now it's like, you can't name 5 fighters that are relevant in that division. So,
yeah. It's crazy how quickly things change. Wasn't 2 years ago Johnny Walker was the next hot shot prospect who was going to challenge Jon Jones, and now he's on a 4-fight losing streak. And man, everything he does is kind of goofy, isn't it? When he wins, he celebrates by doing the caterpillar, and then he gets knocked out and kind of falls back in a goofy way. It's just crazy how just how quickly things change with him. But he was the hot shot prospect, so now there's a new one coming up. So as Frank mentioned, you need someone to step up. In this division, Glover needs some. I don't even know if Glover's going to hold the belt for very long, but he needs some challengers.
Hey, it's
I
a
don't think he's going to
testament
hold it for very long.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's a testament to Jon Jones. I mean, right? We were talking about his greatness in the cage. I mean, he laid waste to a division. I mean, it's scorched earth. There's nothing left.
Do you agree with this, by the way? And by the way, hello to our buddy Joel. He used to listen to us religiously. I'm sure you remember this dude back on the 560 days. And I've seen him comment on some of the shows on YouTube. So I think he's been watching a lot of replays. It's nice to see him in here live. Nice to see Tony 2 times in here as well. I love this dude. But he says too much wrestling, not enough strikers in the UFC right now. I don't know. I don't know about that. I think we've got, champions in a lot of divisions who are strike heavy fighters, and, Justin Gaethje, a contender in the lightweight division. Now he's a big time striker. I don't know. I think, wrestling to me has always been the superior discipline. Do you feel like there's proportionally more wrestling, too much wrestling in the UFC now compared to the days of old? I think we have some exciting strikers these days.
I think some of the best fighters are actually the wrestlers who became and developed their striking. Yeah. You look at Kamaru Usman, you mentioned Justin Gaethje. I mean, these guys come from wrestling backgrounds and just really developed on the striking side.
Adesanya is an amazing striker. I mean,
Adesanya is a great striker. Jon Jones was a wrestler. People forget Jon Jones was a wrestler initially who developed, dynamic striking.
Yeah, it's the guy, it is the Dagestanis that I think make you feel like it's being dragged back into the George St. Pierre days, because they can't wait to pull you into the quicksand that is their top position. But you're right. Most of the wrestlers, I mean, Michael Chandler, we can go on and on. These guys are all prolific, violent strikers that deliver exciting fights. It's these damn Dagestanis that are pulling things down to the mat.
Well, speaking of the dang Dagestanis, let's get into a new episode of the Toss-Up.
All right. I feel like we should have like a bell that goes off or something, or, like a Like
Yeah,
a ding, ding, ding.
I can have somebody make
We got to
that.
work on some. We got to work on some sound effects. If Islam Makhachev beats Bobby Green this weekend, will he become the #1 contender to the lightweight title?
Yeah, I think he should. Now, not his fault that he was supposed to fight a guy who's actually ranked a spot above him in the UFC rankings of Beneil Dariush. Dariush pulls out of the fight injured. That's completely out of Islam Makhachev's control. And then the only other guys ranked ahead of him are Dustin Poirier, who just lost a title shot. So, he's got to go back a little bit in the line, and Justin Gaethje, who's about to fight the champion. So, no, to me, it still makes sense. And also, Bobby Green is not chopped liver. I mean, it's a strange situation for him. He keeps his body in really good shape. He's always got good cardio, but obviously a 2-week turnaround is an abnormal situation. And the fight is going to be at a catch weight of 160 pounds because of that, because he doesn't really have ample time to cut all the way down to 155. But I still think this is a tremendous test. And I still would say if Islam Makhachev comes out victorious again against Bobby Green, again, not as big of a fight as Beneil Dariush would have been. But, if you don't have Makhachev next in line, who do you have? Like, it still makes sense. I don't think he should lose the right at a title shot just because his original opponent dropped out. Kudos to him for still fighting. Like, kudos to him for immediately saying, no, you got to get me another opponent, right? Because sometimes fighters are in a situation, it happened with Jon Jones before, where, an opponent drops out, and you're like, you know what? I don't want to take somebody on a few days' notice. I just want to chill, and we'll figure out the next fight. No, Makhachev wanted to keep the seat warm. So absolutely, he gets the title shot if he wins.
Yeah, I agree. Islam should get the title shot. But it reminds me of just how eerily similar his path to a title shot was to Khabib. If you think of Khabib's career, he didn't fight the top guys until after he was champion. He fought a Michael Johnson. He fought a Ally Quinta. He fought Edson Barbosa. He fought a lot of those guys on the way to getting his title shot, but he didn't fight the Dustin Poiriers and the Conor McGregors and the who am I missing? The Justin Gaethjes until after he had the belt. So, no fault of his, the Tony Ferguson fight. They tried it like 4 times. It never happened. But so no fault of his, but he didn't really have a tough road to get to that title shot. And once he got the title, then he fought the top guys. I could see the same thing happening with Islam, to where he didn't necessarily fight a top 3 guy or a top 5 guy on the way to his title shot. But once he gets the belt, then a lot of the top contenders I could see him facing at that point, in addition to whatever title fight he gets. Sorry.
Yeah, that's right. You're 100% right, because, same thing happened to Khabib. I mean, everyone was avoiding him. They're like, this guy who's coming up is a nightmare. I don't want to fight him. So, I think the consensus in this group, to sum it up, is that Islam is probably the uncrowned champion. It's just whenever they let him get in there to fight for it. Who would be a tougher matchup for Makhachev, Charles Oliveira or Justin Gaethje?
I actually feel pretty strongly about Justin Gaethje being the tougher matchup for him, because I look at just styles make fights. Obviously both of these guys, Gaethje and Oliveira, are very dangerous strikers in kind of different ways. But to me, Oliveira is willing to give up more takedowns and rely a lot on his jiu-jitsu. And I just think no matter how good your ground game is from bottom, having Islam Makhachev on top of you, it's like having a wet blanket on top of you. So I just feel like that matchup, to me, I think Oliveira's quote-unquote weaknesses play more into Islam Makhachev's strengths, whereas Justin Gaethje, as you mentioned a couple minutes ago, Frank, he's got a pretty strong wrestling background, was a very decorated amateur wrestler, collegiate wrestler. He chooses to mostly strike because he's very good at it. He's got very powerful hands, but he seems to me like more of a pressure fighter that could potentially keep Makhachev a little bit more on the back foot, and also better takedown defense in theory. And he hits really, really hard, which is obviously tough for a guy in Makhachev who's going to want to get it to the ground. I mean, listen, it's very, very easy for 100 different reasons to compare Islam Makhachev to his mentor, Khabib Nurmagomedov, who trains him, and they have similar styles, both very dominant. But Makhachev, he'll never be as good as Khabib, right? I mean, you could put him kind of in the conversation and say this is like the heir to the Khabib throne. Khabib more athletic than Makhachev, and I think that he maybe had a little bit better head movement as a striker. So Makhachev, in theory, could be more vulnerable to Justin Gaethje's deadly stuff. So, I think I'm going to pick Gaethje I think I'm going to pick Oliveira to beat Gaethje, but I think Gaethje would be the tougher matchup for Islam Makhachev. What do you think, James?
Yeah, we're on the same page. I agree. Justin Gaethje, I think, is a tougher matchup, and he's already been through that game plan. Khabib will give Islam that same game plan if those two got into the cage. So Gaethje has already seen it, and had that Gaethje fight with Khabib had went another 2 or 3 rounds with the leg kicks that he was landing and some of the hard shots he was landing, I think that would have eventually changed the fight. It's just as soon as it got to the ground, it was over, and it was over too quickly. So I think Gaethje probably learned from that to let's try to drag this fight out to 3 or 4 rounds. See if he can take my power for 3 or 4 rounds. I think it'll be a real tough matchup for Islam if he has to take some shots from Gaethje for 3 or 4 rounds, as opposed to it going to the ground early in the fight and being a quick submission. So yeah, I'll say Gaethje.
We're going to be joined in a moment by Brian Jackson, but give us one more toss-up question, Frank, before we bring him up.
Which of these non-MMA combat sports do you enjoy watching most? Kickboxing, bare knuckle boxing, grappling, wrestling, or can I throw in also just regular old boxing?
Yeah, you absolutely. That's a good. I don't know why I left that out. Well, one thing for me is I think if you just go like watching on TV, probably boxing and then kickboxing. But I got to tell you, man, ever since I went to a bare knuckle show live, I think in arena, that's my favorite out of that bunch. And it's like I compare watching bare knuckle, I compare it to hockey. And everybody says this, and it's true. Hockey is a different experience live than it is on TV. It's like that's out of like the big time team sports, I think hockey is the one where it's such a big difference being there because you can hear the skates on the ice so much better. You can feel the hits, the boards rattling when the puck hits it. And I look at bare knuckle the same way. And I know James and I have both been to live bare knuckle shows, not the same one. Our paths did not intersect a few months ago, but I've been to a couple of BYB extreme shows. And I think it's just because they don't have gloves on. The punches just sound different, and being there, you're like, oh shit, it's a big difference. Like, why I've watched bare knuckle on TV, and it is what it is. Watching it live, there's something special about it, James.
Yeah, I like the bare knuckle fight that I went to that one time. I got to see that one a little bit more. I mean, I've seen a lot of boxing over the years, so I'm gonna stick to boxing. Now with MMA, it kind of seems like a limited combat sport because it's a lot of strategy that it doesn't involve. But there's still a lot to be said about a good boxing matchup. There's just not a lot of good matchups being made. There's a lot of champions that are avoiding other champions, and there's too many belts. But that's another conversation for another day. But I would say boxing, a good high level boxing match.
Yeah, it's boxing, and James's point. If you're 40 or over, it's boxing, and if it hadn't gotten so diluted, many of us would never have come over to MMA. We'd still be there.
All right, so let's bring in our first guest of the day. And again, let me set the table here. Frank Zaffere has started an MMA training camp, and at the end of it, this may end up being the longest training camp in history because it's going to take a while to get him prepared. But at the end of it, he's going to take a fight, and we're going to talk to both of his coaches tonight because he just had his first training session a couple days ago. Brian Jackson, one of Frank's coaches, gracious enough to join us, former professional fighter. And Brian, you have trained with, during your career, the likes of BJ Penn and Eddie Alvarez, and now Frank Zaffere. How does Frank stack up among those greats?
Well, he's got the most promising right hand in the business right now. So, yeah. He's,
thanks for the love. Yeah.
Yeah, we got some secret weapons. So, don't think Frank is sitting duck here. He's got something in his corner that people don't know about yet. So,
it's good. It's good coaching. I can tell you that. I'm very blessed. Yeah,
there's no doubt about that. I mean, having people like Brian and Dean Thomas in his corner, that's the sort of coaching that can elevate theoretically anybody, including Frank. And before we get more into detail on the training session, Brian, I got to ask you about some of the guys you've trained with. Really, one of the most influential figures in making me an MMA fan in the first place, because I go back a little bit with this, was BJ Penn. I mean, he was one of the guys that captivated my imagination, and he was at the top and near the top for so very long. What was it like to train with him? And I wanted to ask you that because, BJ had he had a reputation. I don't know if it was fair or unfair, but people made it sound like this guy didn't really work that hard because he was so talented. He didn't have to work that hard. Was that your experience? What was it like training with BJ Penn?
So I kind of went to Hawaii in 2006. I know you said I trained with Eddie Alvarez too. I started training in Philadelphia with Eddie Alvarez and a team called the Fight Factory, and I was undefeated with this team, and so was he. But kind of all the focus shifted to him, and I kind of went 2 years without a fight. I met a guy named Sharuta Verissimo at a UFC afterwards. I believe he fought Carlos Newton or some that night, and Twinkle Toes. He fought Frank Trigg, I believe.
Frank Trigg, yeah.
And I met him, and he told me, it's like, hey, come out, train with us in Hawaii. And so I looked into the college, and so I kind of killed two birds with one stone. I went and got a degree at the University of Hawaii Hilo, and then I went to BJ Penn's training camp. And the stories of BJ not training hard, they're not really that true. I would say is more of just sort of like ignorance. Like he kind of just trained too much sometimes, or sparred too much, or just I don't think he trained properly sometimes. And he'd go in there and kind of gas out. I also think clean fighter gets taken for granted sometimes. He was a clean fighter, and sometimes when you go out there and you're in there with somebody not clean, it kind of looks like you maybe didn't train as hard as they did. But at the end of the day, I think that had a lot to do with it. But I don't know if you remember, I was out there in 2009 when he brought out what was the quarterback for USC whose dad made him quit? James, you might.
I don't remember the dad made him.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I'm just brain farting on the name.
Oh, I don't remember him.
But USC 1989. But anyway, his dad started training BJ Penn, and some crazy intense aqua training stuff, training like the central nervous system. I'll think of the guy's name here in a second. But yeah, I mean, he had some very innovative training things, and that was the last year. And then BJ became champion in that time. So I mean, that was a amazing time in my life. So.
Brian, I got a question on your strategy with Frank as a trainer. Do you plan on breaking him down, to the bones and kind of humbling him at the start and then building him back up, or do you want to keep his confidence high the entire time? What's your strategy as you go into the early part of his training camp?
Our strategy is definitely to keep Frank intact. We're not trying to break any bones, muscles. We're trying to teach Frank a lot of philosophy versus technique. That way we don't cloud his brain. Basically, we're making a poor man's Randy Couture, if you want to put it that way. So
that's actually a flattering comparison, right, Frank?
Well, more than that, guys, it's like, being around, I've known Brian for a while, and, being around him in this world, in his world, and then also Dean, who we're going to talk to later, like watching how quickly their minds process even someone as bad as I am and figure out a strategy that quickly. That was really amazing, because he can go on a little bit about it, but I mean, he was able to figure it out right away, exactly what we need to do and how to do it. So I couldn't be more optimistic about the plan.
So let's get into it. And again, to reset, because, sometimes people are ADD, they jump in and out of the live feed. Our own Frank Zaffere, the man that I'm pointing to, is putting himself through a mock. Well, I can't even say the word mock because he's going to fight. He's putting himself through an MMA training camp, and he's not a professional MMA fighter. He was, once years ago, the most dangerous white belt in his jiu-jitsu gym. He's got a little bit of a wrestling background, but he's not a pro fighter. He wants to see what pro fighters go through, and he's crazy enough or ambitious enough to actually want to fight. And the man we're speaking to, Brian Jackson, below me here, he's one of Frank's coaches. He and Dean Thomas are in charge of getting this Adonis ready to actually take the cage and fight. So, okay, Brian, walk me through it. You're in the gym and Frank is starting. How did the training session start? How did you work him through the early minutes? And what were your early impressions on just how ready for this he's going to be?
Well, I think the first thing Frank had to get over was just his nerves. He just wanted to, not make a fool of himself in front of me and Den. So, those are just little things that he's going to have to get over. He actually got to do some punching. So I was trying to do some takedowns on him. He was trying to punch me. So it wasn't that easy to take him down. So, like I said, my strategy is to make a poor man's Randy Couture out of this man. I think some clinch work with some uppercuts, put him against the fence, get him on the ground, drop some elbows. I think that's what we're going to see when Frank finally hits the ring.
So guys, you may have hold on. I just wanted to get one follow up because you may have answered a little bit there. So are those like his best weapons, like dirty boxing? Like what did you feel were the things that he showed off the best?
Well, like I said, I mean, the right hand, he kind of had a natural, almost like a Dan Henderson-esque right hand that, and something with his teacher in 4th grade where she made him switch from his right hand to his left hand because they couldn't afford right-handed desks or left-handed desks in school. So he's so confused on, just what hand to even write with. But, I think that right hand is what he naturally is. And that could become a really good weapon for him.
Guys, I have to tell you, too, like, just so you guys understand this, the pedigree of Brian, like, I think the best endorsement I got was Dean coming afterwards and saying, Frank, I don't think you realize how lucky you got. So, like,
nice.
Getting an endorsement like that from Dean Thomas, pretty big deal.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
And you guys all, I'm sure, remember Frank the Snowman Munson, who's probably still fighting. Like I was calling some of his fights like 11, 12 years ago. He was old then. He's probably still fighting somewhere. But Frank, you were timeless, like Jeff Munson, who was like he fought longer than Bernard Hopkins. Like he was fighting like I think he was probably about as old as you when he was still fighting.
That's funny. Well, we're putting together a schedule. You guys didn't show up. I mean, like me and Brian, we drove, what was it, an hour up to, I mean, it was forever. I mean,
it would have been an hour longer for me, by the way. You got to find a Dade County training center.
So we'll work that in because I know you'd like to, to parody some of my follies in training. So, we'll have a schedule soon that we can share with you.
I love it. I love it. Hey, Brian, I asked you about BJ Penn. What about Eddie Alvarez? Because he's always been one of my favorites to watch. I mean, just so active, so aggressive, so much pressure. What's it like to go through training with that dude?
Eddie was a great teammate. He's just a good guy, Eddie. He's really got his head on straight for someone that's from Kensington, Pennsylvania. No offense, but whenever, like, I was 21 and he was 19, and I mean, we were just so young, and I don't think we even knew any better. And it's a funny story because Eddie's got some funny moments where I told Frank one of them. I said, Eddie told me one time backstage, after you go out there and fight in 15 minutes, no one but you and your opponent's ever going to remember your regional match ever again. So who cares what happens? I said, okay, thanks for the advice. And then also he went to my first fight, and I guess I'm the one that inspired him to fight.
Wow.
Because he said, well, hell, Brian, if you could do it, I knew damn well I could do it. I said, okay. So, but Eddie was incredible when he started fighting because he sort of had the same, like where Conor McGregor, Ireland made Conor McGregor famous. Kensington, Pennsylvania made Eddie Alvarez famous. His first fight was Ring of Combat, and he sold the whole bleacher in this YMCA thing. And then the next fight was like he started fighting for like the Bodog and stuff like that. And is that my mic that's making all that noise?
I think so.
It might Sorry be. About that.
You're all good.
I don't got the wireless feature yet. But Eddie Alvarez would sell like first fight sold like 50 tickets. Next fight 100, 200. He was a construction worker, and he had people lined up at his construction site buying tickets. And I mean, the beginning of his career was just something to marvel. I mean, he's truly like a modern day Rocky. I mean, there was nothing more impressive to watch than the beginning of his career. I mean, it was amazing.
I love it. Oh, and I got one more on the way out. Got a pretty big pay-per-view fight coming up in about a week and a half. Colby Covington taking on Jorge Masvidal. Covington, a pretty sizable favorite. Is that who you're picking? And what does Masvidal have to do to get the upset?
I mean, I always go with the wrestlers, but Masvidal's whole wrestling game is from Colby Covington. So if anyone's going to be able to stop it, it's going to be him. I think for me, for the sanity of sport, I just don't know how much Masvidal's got left, and there's no way he's going to really challenge Usman anyway. In my opinion, I think Covington's the only guy that has the potential. Probably going to lose to him 4 or 5 times before he finally wins. But I just personally, I'm not a huge Colby fan, but I would like to see his momentum keep going just for the sake of the sport.
I love it. Good stuff here by Brian Jackson. I love the recap of Frank's training. I mean, a poor man's Randy Couture, good overhand right. It sounds like Frank did really well. I'm actually glad I wasn't there to see it, because I would have preferred a disaster.
He's being nice to me, guys. He's being nice to me.
Oh,
he looked like a chiseled Greek god out there.
He's in good shape for an old man. There's no doubt about that. Brian, thank you so much, man. Enjoy the rest of your night.
No problem, guys. Thank you so much.
See you, brother.
So have you made up the schedule yet, Frank? Do you know how many days a week you're training?
Yeah, he said I'm going to need 3 to 5. So we're going to try to shoot right in the middle and go 4. So that's the plan. And he trains me in EMS, electromuscular stimulation. So we're going to try to. So he's been training me for over a year in that, which helped me recover from back surgeries. Well, from my second back surgery. So we're going to try to utilize the time already there, and then do the and also be training, striking, etc.
Frank, did you know you had a Dan Henderson-esque overhand? I guess he has a left, but you had an overhand right, or did you discover that in training?
Well, it was the Hendo bomb was a right, wasn't it?
It was the Hendo bomb
was a right. Okay,
it was right.
Yeah.
No, I it's funny, James. It's funny how these things go. But, the things that I thought I might be okay at, I was so rusty, it was pathetic. So we started with double legs, and I'm like, I should know wrestling. And, it's just that my movement wasn't there. I'd like to blame the back surgeries, but it's also just getting old and not having done anything. But the striking, for what I'm going to attribute Brian and Dean's coaching. Brian primarily worked with me on that. And, he told me, look, since you've never done it, you've never boxed, at least we don't have any bad habits to break. So
good point.
Yeah, so he was being nice, but I was so nervous, guys. I was so nervous that I was so tight. I was just gassing from anxiety. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it was stressful, but
and you bring up a fair point about the bad habits thing, because I know that's legit. Our late great friend Howard Davis Jr., the Olympic gold medalist in boxing, who passed away a few years back, unfortunately. But later part of his life, he was a big time boxing trainer of MMA fighters. He worked for many years at American Top Team, and you sometimes will get called into other people's training camps, and Chuck Liddell's coaches took a like to Howard, and Chuck took a like to Howard. So this was late Chuck, right? After his prime. But Howard went and worked with Chuck on his boxing for a few of his training camps. And I would always ask Howard about it, and he would tell me that he's got a lot of bad habits, right? And it was tough, because Chuck was, in his late 30s by that point, and obviously known as a thunderous striker. That was another guy with a ridiculous overhand right that put so many people out of their consciousness. But when it actually came to being a real volume technical boxer, it was too late to teach him. You couldn't break Chuck's bad habits. You could only do so much with his boxing. And so all this to say, Frank Zaffere is going to be a better boxer than Chuck Liddell by the time he's done training. That's what I'm getting at there.
I was hoping you were getting to something cool. Yeah. I have to tell you guys a quick funny story, though. The first drill we did, the second drill we did was just shooting for a double leg and then picking the guy up off the ground. And Brian was the guy I was shooting on and picking up. And I thought to myself, okay, I'd like to avoid any issue with my lower back or my neck. So I managed to, put both, kind of in harm's way with that drill. But anyway, I had mentioned to Dean, about the neck fusion. So about halfway through the drill, he said, you got to arch your head up through his arm and really push your head through him as you lift him. So I followed his instructions. And as I went up, he was right. The lift was much, much easier. but my neck cracked in a way that you could have heard across the street because I've been so ginger with it, right, for a year, So Dean just looked at me, Dean's personality. He goes, "Yo, you all right?" I don't know. We'll find out tomorrow.
I mean, I'm just worried. I'm just worried at some point Frank is going to end up in a stretcher, and it's not even going to be from the actual fight. It's just going to be from like attempting a takedown.
I mean, these guys are really protecting me. I mean, really great. Brian, I think you could tell from his demeanor. I mean, like he's really dialed in on making sure that kind of stuff doesn't happen. So we're being careful.
Do you remember in the 6th Rocky movie when, he's coming out of a long retirement and he's training with Duke, who was, Apollo Creed's old trainer, trained him, the later Rocky movies. And then he was just like, well, you got arthritis, so sparring's out. Like, you've got a bad neck, so this is out. We could basically just hit a bag and dance. Like, that's how it was with Frank. It's like, well, you got bad neck, bad back. Yeah. You probably have arthritis. I'm just going to throw that into the cocktail menu as well. And so, we can't really do a whole lot. So I picture that's how it went for you.
Yeah. Well, it was just like I said, it wasn't much of a, it wasn't much. I mean, it was, probably a half hour, 35 minutes of actually doing stuff. It was late, but, it was just getting started. It was just, you got to break that first egg. You know what I mean? So, and I, can't say it enough. I was just super nervous, man. So. Yeah, I'm glad you guys weren't there to videotape me. Although maybe it would have loosened me up a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
It would have felt more fun and less serious.
Well, at least you would have known that there's a couple people in the room that would be at least just as bad at this as you are, if not worse. So I want to add to this, guys, that there was a UFC fighter working with Dean when I got there. It's a she, and I didn't know who she was, except, I was alerted that she was on the UFC roster, and she stayed to watch. So that you don't want to talk about ratcheting up your anxiety. You know what I mean? God.
So yeah. So she was doing some stuff on her own, but she's there watching. So that was a little nerve-wracking too.
Hey, and Joel is right. Frank is a man of his word. I've seen him do things and go through it like a boss. Yeah, I mean, Frank once, James, I don't even know if you know about this, and this was like early in our radio career together. Frank lost a Lyoto Machida related fight bet, and he actually drank his own urine, but it was a radio bit. But like I was there. It actually happened.
But give the backstory, James. Lyoto did that as part of his training.
His training.
I know it was a podcast, if you remember.
I don't remember Joe Rogan doing that.
Joe Rogan did it.
Oh, I didn't even remember him doing that.
Yeah, that's where we kind of got the idea.
Oh,
for the
that's
bet.
right.
Yeah. So.
What fight was that? What fight did Lyoto lose for that one?
I don't remember. I think it might have been to Shogun Hua.
Shogun,
yeah.
I think it might have been a Shogun.
Oh my God! So that was and I think that's what Joel is referencing. He is a man of his word. He follows through on stuff. I just hope you go into your fight with the type of confidence that Robert Whittaker still has. Wow. So Robert Whittaker, despite the fact that he's got now 2 losses to the current champion, he still says, "I'm the best middleweight in the world, mate. Trust me." That was his takeaway from losing to Israel Adesanya the second time was, "I'm the best middleweight in the world. Trust me." That's my biggest takeaway. I have no feeling right now, and I'm enjoying the process. In every fight, you see a new development and evolved version of myself. I'm going to be the best ever. It's just a matter of time. I mean, unfortunately, guys, for him, he's not going to be anytime soon any better than the second best middleweight in the world. But I want Frank to have that type of confidence, right? And listen, like James, Whittaker, he did look better the second time against Adesanya. Looked terrible the first time, but a little bit of a stretch coming off of 2 losses to the champ to say you're the best middleweight in the world.
Yeah, that's definitely a stretch, but I think this is more of an indictment on your boy Israel Adesanya than anything. If you've noticed, the last couple of fights, Marvin Vettori and Robert Whittaker, both guys came out of that fight feeling that Izzy isn't all that. Izzy isn't as dominant. Israel Adesanya should be dominating the division with the talent that he has, like Jon Jones dominated his light heavyweight division. Israel Adesanya, to me, and I know this fight is a couple weeks ago, so I'm trying to remember it. He seems to kind of coast through fights now. Like he's not going out. If you just want to judge the Robert Whittaker fight, he finished Robert Whittaker. He let him know at the end of the first round, clipped him, pretty much knocked him out. He got back up and he finished him and clipped him again in the second round. He let him know that this was his division. In the second fight, he kind of coasted through and did enough to win, just like he did in the Vettori fight. Just kind of did enough to win to where both guys are feeling that, hey, I'm kind of making up ground on Israel Adesanya. If I fight him again, I can beat him next time. Like if you're a dominant champion and you want to be one of the all-time greats, you have to leave no doubt in your opponents as champions to where they shouldn't be asking for immediate rematches or feeling that, they can win the next fight and things like that. They should have no doubt in their mind that the champion is the better man. And I think that's more of an indictment on Izzy than anything.
He's getting safe. It's kind of like we saw it with George St. Pierre, with a style change. He's clearly better than his opponents. Yep. Jon Jones, too. We saw it with Jon Jones. If we think back, it's this feeling where it's like, I know I'm better than you, so why put myself in harm's way? Why, go for that electrifying finish because I'm going to coast to an easy, 4-1 or 5-0 win. So fans lose on that one, though, unfortunately.
And no doubt about that. Let's look ahead to what's going to be, I think, a really exciting main event this coming Saturday in Vegas, UFC Fight Night Vegas 49. I know that there's like two different ways to count these shows, but it's UFC Vegas 49. So Bobby Green, late replacement. In fact, he fought just 2 weeks ago. Beat Haqparast, didn't take a lot of damage, which is why he's able to turn around so quickly. Going up against, a guy who I think is eventually going to be the lightweight champion of the world, Islam Makhachev, who's got that incredible Sambo background, takedowns, just incredible pressure, top control. He's like a slightly less dynamic version of his mentor, Khabib Nurmagomedov. And Makhachev here, guys, is a gigantic favorite. Like I can't justify betting him on the money line here. Like if we want to look through some props, maybe that's something worth considering here. But Makhachev minus 900 now. Bobby Green, the plus 600 underdog. In fact, Frank, this is one of those where I'm being real here. I'm fully expecting Islam Makhachev to win this fight, but plus 600, kind of a scratch-off ticket on Bobby Green. He's dangerous, man. Sprinkle a few bucks on Bobby Green. You could do worse.
Well, that's what separates the pros in gambling from the Muppets that just make Vegas wealthy. Seriously though. Look, MMA is a rare sport where they throw up these lotto tickets for you. Yeah. MMA is also a rare sport where lotto tickets get punched a lot, pun intended. So yes, of course you want to bet both sides of that. You know what I mean? You want to bet the favorite, but you also want to throw a few bucks on the lotto because if it comes through, man, holy crap. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier that Islam seems to be getting an easier road to the title than most. But, this could be a tough matchup for him. There's some pressure on Islam. Not only does he have to win, he has to win kind of impressive now. If he had fought Dariush, which I am bummed at the Dariush match, this was actually one of the first quarter matchups I was really looking forward to, Islam against Dariush. But if he had, kind of beat Dariush 3 rounds to 2 or, he had a tough fight there, no qualms there, no problem. But if he goes in and has a tough fight against Bobby Green and gets rocked or has to come back or, wins late or, a debatable fight, then maybe Islam doesn't get that title shot. So I think it's a different kind of pressure here to where not only does he have to win, which was the case initially with Dariush, but now he has to win impressively, which can be a tougher thing, to do against Bobby Green. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I thought Bobby Green, his last 2 fights, may arguably be the best of his career, best performances of his career at 35 years of age, been around a really long time. I mentioned the Haqparast win, and before that, he absolutely starched Raging Al Iaquinta, and you could really see his height, his reach, the quickness in his hands, the incredible accuracy with his punches. That was a really, really great performance. So he provides certainly some danger for someone like Makhachev, who's going to be primarily using his striking just to close the distance and set up his takedowns. And so, there's always going to be those moments. And I expect Makhachev to land takedowns at a successful clip. Even though Bobby Green can wrestle, like Bobby Green is not going to have bad takedown defense. I just think Makhachev is so overwhelmingly good with his offensive wrestling and his sambo. He's going to get takedowns, but there's always going to be those few seconds where you're trying to close that distance. And a guy like Bobby Green, who's got really deceptively fast hands and good short punches, can catch you with something when you're coming in. So there is some danger there. Let me look through a couple of the props here. So, okay, obviously at minus 900, I will not minus 850. Actually, I'm looking at my at our official sportsbook betus.com minus 850. That's still, I'm not going to be putting $850 to win 100 back on Makhachev to win the fight straight up money line. What do you guys think about methods of victory here? So, Vegas doesn't think this is going to go the distance, but you can get slightly better odds on Makhachev to win by TKO, KO, or submission at minus 225. Or if you think Makhachev is going to win the full distance, 5 rounds, you can get Makhachev by decision at plus 300. Do you see value, James, in either of those? Minus 225 for the finish, plus 300 for a decision win.
I like the minus 225 on the finish because one, it's 5 rounds. So you get 5 rounds, 4.5 rounds to really get that finish. And yes, Bobby Green was just in a fight, 2 weeks ago, but you kind of wonder if, gas tank or something like that could be a factor, going from a short notice into a 5-round fight. It's not short notice into a 3-round fight. It's short notice into a full 5-round fight. So that could be an issue as well. So I like, I like that minus 225 for the finish. I would not take that minus 900, just straight up on Islam, but to get him to finish, which he's probably going to, if he wins, he's probably going to win that way anyway. I like those odds. 2-1, not bad.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And then you can get, a lot of various props, like on which round the fight is going to end in. But I think I agree with your take on that, James. What do you think, Frank?
I agree with James. I really have nothing to add. Islam is. We're talking about the Islam fight, right?
Yeah.
I memean, he's just so dominant. I have a hard time imagining anything happening. I just have a hard time imagining anyone beating him, honestly. I mean, I think he's good everywhere. The only thing that I've said about him in past shows is that he gets cocky. So I'm wondering if he, taunts, baits, hands down, does something stupid like that. I think this is his only real vulnerability.
I don't know if he's going to fight.
I was reading text, guys. I apologize. So
no, it's all good. By the way, this is pretty impressive. Islam has a 66% takedown rate. I don't know Bobby's defense stats. I could see if I can look that up real quick, James, while you're talking.
I was going to say, Frank, you said you don't know if anybody can beat him. Gaethje will beat him if they have that matchup. I don't know if Gaethje's going to beat Oliveira, but if Gaethje does beat Oliveira and Gaethje fights Islam, I'm actually going to pick Gaethje in that fight.
Well, what about we both love Gaethje, but I think I might go with Islam. What about the reach?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But Islam's chin hasn't been tested yet, and I think Gaethje hits like a Mack truck. I mean, Khabib said it himself. And I look, we're comparing Islam and Khabib a lot, but Khabib rarely got hit, and when he did, he ate those shots. He got rocked, I think, one time in his entire career. So we'll see if Islam can take those punches as well. But we're looking way ahead.
Look who's here. The coach, Dean Thomas. He has coached dominant champions like Amanda Nunes, Tyron Woodley while he was champ. Now he gets to coach America's champ, Frank Zaffere. Dean, 9-time UFC veteran, UFC commentator, multi-talented individual joining us. How you doing, Dean?
I'm good, man. How are you guys?
Good, man.
Doing great. Always
Frank,
good
you
to
still
see.
alive? I didn't know Frank would still be alive right today.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, I went back. We hit it again today, and then we'll be on a full schedule starting next week. So
awesome.
Hopefully, we can work something out with you for a day a week or something, just to check in with you.
Yeah, man. All right. I'm sure everybody wants an update on what happened.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. First thing I want to ask you is, what was your expectation on what Frank's level would be, and how did reality mesh with your expectation?
The thing is, I really didn't have much of an expectation. Listen, I've taught 5-year-olds before, so so I've seen it all. So I didn't really expect too much. But you know what? He came, he showed up, and he put gloves on, and he did his thing. And I'm happy. I'm happy that he got a start. And now we got somewhere to work. And I'm happy, and I can't wait to see the finished product. It might be a couple years, but it's going to happen.
I can't emphasize it. Oh, go ahead, Alex. I'll let you
No, I
go.
was just gonna say, what would happen first? Like Frank gets tactically really good, or he just dies of old age. Like, what would happen first?
I mean, it's close. It's close. But I think we can get him to a level that's comfortable, that he's comfortable and competent in there before he dies. I think so.
Guys, I have to tell you, like, being around Dean just for that short time in that aspect of his life, and I'm not just blowing smoke. Like, I've known Dean a long time. I have a tremendous amount of respect for him, but just that brief time that I was with him doing that, like, holy shit. Like, what? I mean, no, just seriously, the way he can communicate, put up patience, and also just very fast analysis. I was just amazed. I was amazed. It's not an accident that he's had the coaching record that he's had. So I just feel like the luckiest guy in the world, even though I know he's going to make fun of me. I feel like the luckiest guy in the world. I get to hang out with Dean maybe one day a week, and Dean kind of endorsed Brian, so I feel like I'm lucky there. So, whatever happens, it won't be for a lack of coaching. I can tell you that.
No, you know what? And I got to tell you, you found a gold mine in Brian. I don't even know his full name. Brian, whatever.
Jackson.
Brian Jackson. You found a gold mine in him because he's really good. He got good fundamentals. He's really patient. And I think he's a really good fit. So I'm happy that you found somebody like that. Hopefully you can get a lot of time in with him and just keep everything nice and simple. And then we're going to make this work. We're going to turn you into a killer. Alex is going to be afraid of you.
I already am.
Yeah.
So it's not saying all. No, okay. So Brian Jackson was on with us earlier, and he said that he thinks you guys can turn Frank into a poor man's Randy Couture. Do you think that would be Frank's skill set and style?
He should have stopped it, man. Nah, but I think so. Because that's a very simple style to learn, and you can get through with that with heart. And I know Frank got heart because he showed up. Like, if you don't have heart, you're not gonna show up. He showed up. So I think we can make it work. I think we can do it. We just got to find him an opponent.
Yeah,
that's the problem. Find him an opponent. It's gonna be the hard part.
Yeah, Dean Bryant talked about that the whole way back south. That was the tough part. So. Yeah.
So basically, Frank is like Islam Makhachev. It's hard to find him an opponent. Nobody wants to fight him.
Well, he's a liability. So like, it's tough.
Yeah.
No, but it can be done. I didn't because we did something similar on Looking for a Fight for Rory Karpf, the director of Looking for a Fight. He had a boxing match, and we found him an opponent. For whatever reason, Bilal Muhammad has got like a whole stable of executive guys that want to fight. Like, really? I've never seen anything like it. He's got like all these like older guys that just like want to try to fight. And we can just go, I call him up and we get to pick. You know what I'm saying?
Oh man.
So I think we'll be able to find a guy for you.
So Bilal Muhammad is going to be like the Sean Shelby. He's going to be the one who finds like some old businessman. Maybe you can find like a rival restaurant owner.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
How about Kim Bocamper? Would you fight Kim Bocamper?
Hell no. But hey, it's funny. Brian found a sparring partner for boxing who happens to be a rival restaurant guy. He's a chef in town. So that's funny that you say that. But
really?
I think he said, we need some sparring, but I don't want to get you killed. And I happen to be helping this guy who's a chef. And I thought, oh my God, that's hilarious. Fight another restaurant guy. But I tell you guys, I think I want to call out Vladimir Putin. I mean, I think
seriously.
Yeah.
Well, and we should do it like a trial by combat, like do Game of Thrones rules where instead of him involving thousands of troops, Frank and Vlad should settle it fisticuff style, right? I mean, if Frank wins, the invasion is over. If Putin wins, he can take another country somewhere, right?
I don't know, man.
I don't know either. He probably knows some of that dirty stuff, he
was in the KGB for how many decades? Like, it's not going to be good for you, I don't think.
Yeah, it's not going to be good for you. You might want to find somebody a little easier.
Oh
How
man.
about Joe Biden? Then I'll try him. Yeah.
Yes, that's who you want. But no, man, like I'm excited for Frank. I love these type of projects. I'm excited for him. I can't wait to see him, start to really feel it. And it's gonna click. Like it's gonna be like one night it's just gonna click, and you're gonna be like, wait a minute, I got this. And then you're gonna be ready to take on the world.
Oh man.
What were your impressions of his cardio? Because I would imagine for
terrible.
some
It was terrible. That was the worst part. Yeah, cardio was terrible.
I'm actually surprised because Frank seems like he works out a lot. Like I thought if anything, cardio might be his strength compared to the other things.
Nah, but you know what? Like I didn't let him quit though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I didn't let him quit. Like there were times where he wanted to stop because of cardio, and I don't let you stop because of cardio. I didn't let him quit, and he didn't quit. He wanted to, and I know how hard it is to stay in there when you want to quit. But I didn't let him quit. He stayed in there. He got it. He finished up the workout, and then that was, we got what we needed. Cardio was bad, but it was more so than cardio. I think it was a lot of like nerves and just, nervous energy. Yeah. But again, like it still has an effect on the way you breathe and your muscles. So obviously we got to get past that. But once we do, I think he'll be all right.
Hey, Dean, Brian Jackson had mentioned Frank had a nice overhand right. He actually called it Hendo-esque overhand right. What did you see from his striking?
I mean, I don't know about Hendo-esque.
We brought Brian on early, so he'd be nice to me because we he's bringing the truth. Yeah.
I don't know if we go that far, but when he settles down and settles his feet down, he's got some decent mechanics. We can work with that.
Okay.
He's got to settle his feet down. That's it. Just settle down. Because sometimes it's not about what you do, or it's about not doing certain things, right? So like stop making all these crazy movements and stop doing all this crazy stuff and just settle down. Just settle down and relax. And you can be okay. Just settle down and relax.
Like it. We're joined here by 9-time UFC veteran, UFC commentator, Dean Thomas. He's also a radio star up in West Palm Beach. He does awesome work. And you were doing a show today, weren't you, from the Honda Classic?
Yeah, I did a serious show earlier today, and then I just left the Honda Classic right now.
Wow.
We did our show there at the Honda Classic. I was out there live on location, getting my 9-iron in. Yeah, man.
Are you commentating? Are you commentating in Vegas this weekend?
Next weekend. Yeah, I got a busy couple of weeks coming up. So like, I'll have all the inside dirt if you guys want to get some dirt while I'm out, because I'm doing the Colby and Masvidal fight on the 5th. Then Jillian Robertson is fighting on the 12th. And she
watched Frank train, didn't she?
Nah, she saw it and was like, I got to get out of here before I pick up bad habits. No, but she's fighting on the 12th. And then I'm going to London. Then I'm going to Ohio on the 26th. So like after next week, I'll be back to back weekends.
All right, so I want to ask you about the main event this weekend, and since you're not going to be part of the broadcast team, you can probably be a little bit more open about it, because I know that there's like a little code about, not necessarily, some people don't like to pick winners for events that they call. Islam Makhachev is not surprisingly a huge favorite, but I think Bobby Green is dangerous. Like Makhachev is like plus or minus 850, Bobby Green plus 600. Now Green just fought 2 weeks ago, but that might even make him more dangerous, right? Because it's like he's never stopped training, never stopped working, didn't take a lot of damage in that fight, so there could be some momentum. I'm picking Makhachev, don't get me wrong, but Dean, I don't think it's crazy to think that Bobby Green could pull off, like a crazy, knockout punch and pull off an upset.
It's not crazy to think that, and the reason why is because he's unpredictable. He's very unpredictable. I don't think that the line is wrong. I think that the line should be about 9-1, but that one could be Saturday night. It's always the first one. So you have, I think the line is right, but I'm also telling you, I don't know if I would take it. I wouldn't take that money, because if the line is 9-1 and that's accurate, that one could be Saturday night. Because it's always the first time where a guy gets caught, and he's kind of disrespecting Bobby Green a little bit. He's underestimating him, and Bobby Green is slick. He's got really good counter wrestling. He creates scrambles well. The only thing I'm worried about with Bobby Green is that, all right, he fought 2 weeks ago, but 2 weeks after a fight are like the most joyous times of your life. And because of that, he said he was about 190 when he got the call. And you can tell he was enjoying himself. So he totally let it go for 2 weeks after the fight, which could be a bad thing. So that's the only thing I'm concerned with, is the fact that it's 2 weeks after a fight. Now, if it was any other circumstance, like just another fight at short notice, without having that honeymoon period at 2 weeks after, I would give him more of a shot. But because he had that 2 weeks to really just let himself go, and probably, you know, again, he gained 30 pounds. So it could be tough if the fight goes a little bit longer. But but listen, I'm not counting Bobby Green out. I love his attitude towards the fight. I love his attitude towards the fight game, and I'm hoping that he does well.
Dean, it was pretty much an assumption that Islam would get the title shot if he beat Beneil Dariush. Does Islam still deserve a title shot if he beats Bobby Green?
I think so. You can't hold him back for something that he had nothing to do with. He's done everything we've asked him to do. He's beaten everybody. Most guys won't fight him to give him an opportunity to beat the person that he needs to beat. So now he finally is supposed to fight somebody that can give him that opportunity. That guy gets hurt. They bring in another guy. He accepts the fight. How can you deny him? It's not that he's not good enough. We know that he's good enough to fight for the title. And it's not that there's a bunch of other guys, in my opinion, there's not a bunch of other guys that are also in position for it anyway. It's not like this list of guys going, oh, I deserve it. I deserve it. I deserve it. We're talking about who's talking about deserving it.
The only guys, in the rankings, he's only behind Poirier, who just lost a crack at the title. So he's got to go back in the line a little bit. He's behind one spot behind Dariush, who pulled out of the fight. Like you said, not his fault. And he's behind Justin Gaethje, who's about to fight for the belt. So, yeah, makes too much sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense for them not to give him the shot. But the only caveat of this is that Conor comes back and goes, all right, I want to fight for the title. You know what I mean? That would suck, because they would probably have to give it to him.
So a question, and we asked ourselves this question earlier. I want your take about Makhachev. If he does win this weekend, and then, you know, he's going to fight one of Justin Gaethje or Charles Oliveira. Out of Gaethje and Oliveira, who do you think is the tougher opponent for Islam?
Oliveira, for sure.
Why?
Oliveira, because in the moments where you actually have to fight with certain skills, I don't think Gaethje has them to compete with Makhachev, where Oliveira does. I mean, Gaethje is really dangerous, and he's really good at countering things. But in the moments where you have to be skilled in certain areas to avoid certain things, I just don't see it happening. And that was clearly exposed on Gaethje when he fought Khabib, because like when he got taken down, I mean, he really looked clueless when he got taken down against Khabib. He looked clueless, and Khabib is not a strong submission finisher, and he submitted him pretty easily. And I would say that Makhachev is the stronger submission finisher than Khabib. So if it gets to the ground and Gaethje couldn't keep the space and create the scrambles and get the space and get out, he would finish Gaethje. But he wouldn't be able to do that to Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira's jiu-jitsu was too good. He's too good in those spots, at least defensively, too good in those spots to where he wouldn't have to worry about totally disengaging in order to survive.
Now, moving on to a different division, Amanda Nunes, who you know very well, and Juliana Pena, they're going to coach The Ultimate Fighter, and they're going to rematch. Juliana Pena, one of the biggest upsets in MMA history, won the first fight. So Amanda gets the rematch. I'm going to favor Amanda in the rematch, quite frankly. But how do you expect the second fight to go, and what does Amanda need to do differently the second time?
You know, I think she just needs to want to be there. You know, I think that I don't want to call it a fluke, because what happened, but it's very easy to happen when against a fighter who doesn't want to be there. When a fighter decides that they don't want to show up, it's like going to school, take a test, and just going whatever, and then throwing it out, like not even reading the questions. Like she didn't want to be there, and her performance showed she suffered from it. She's being punished for it right now, and I think that was kind of an eye opener for her. Now she's like, all right, you know what? I need to get back to work. I know I can beat this girl. I need to get back to work. So I think she obviously has to train, but I think she just really needs to show up and want to fight, because when she wants to fight, she's a damn good fighter. Not just a dangerous fighter, but a damn good fighter. And what she showed in that first fight, she didn't show the signs of being a good fighter at all. She showed the signs of being a girl who just wanted to go home.
Dean Thomas, 9-time UFC veteran, who's also Frank Zaffere's MMA coach, which is it's crazy. I mean, you talk about having Brian Jackson and Dean Thomas. Like, Frank has better training than some of the fighters in the UFC. So he's gonna be a UFC caliber fighter by the time he's done.
One of my proudest accomplishments is to be able to put that name on my resume.
Now, is that the name on top or the name on the bottom?
It's right. It's on the back of the page. Flip the page to read it. Yeah,
I love it. So again, I'll let people know. You mentioned not that you're not at the show this weekend, but then you're at like the next 50 weeks after that. So let people know again the next couple events you're going to be on commentary for.
All I know is that you only get one weekend of break from me. After that, you're going to see me. I'm working on the 5th. I'm doing the weigh-in show with Daniel Cormier, Laura Sanko, and Dan Helly on March 4th. Working on the 5th as the coach's voice. Then I'll be cornering on the 12th. Then on the 19th, I'll be working the pre and the post show for the UFC. And then on the 26th, the pre and the post show. So you won't be able to get rid of me in the next couple of weeks.
Jeez, I mean, he's everywhere. and by the way, and you always, every time you're on, you always have fans in the chat. Our guy Tony 2 times says he always learns something from your analysis during the UFC broadcast. Yeah, and no, I can co-sign on that. When sometimes I mute Dean, but when I don't have him muted, I'm like, wow, actually, I learned something today. So
you better turn it up. You better turn it on. I've been trying to spit gems.
No, you do a great job.
Great job.
Enjoy the rest of your night, Dean Thomas.
All right, fellas. I'll talk to y'all soon.
See ya.
Awesome. That was great stuff.
Yeah, he does a great job, and it's on the fly. Like when I'm watching the pay-per-views, like his analysis comes on the fly, and it's so thoughtful, as if he had it prepped, a day or two before. It's amazing kind of how he just sees something and immediately is able to kind of wax poetic on what he's seeing and simplifies it for the audience. He has
right. It's in the moment because he's kind of like the sideline reporter, and like I've done that a few times, like for football games, and it's hard. Like it's actually like to try to get that kind of insight and like pick your spots to interject it. It's like, in a way, it's like it's easier to be like the main commentator who's talking all the time than it is to be the one who's got to add insight the way that he does. So that's some really good stuff. So fellas, any parting comments before we wrap this one up? I feel like James and I have had a really easy week compared to Frank. So James, anything else you want to say before we end this episode? Anything you want to promote?
No, you can always just follow me on Twitter. That's about it. It is tax season, not to make it about my day job, but it is tax season. So anyone that needs tax work, you can either hit me up. My firm is called Adeptus CPAs. We do tax work for everybody. I'm head of the athletes and entertainment division, but you can hit me up anytime. We do tax work. We do about 6,000 tax returns a year. So we do pretty much everybody. Yeah.
Seems like a lot. I can barely do my own.
And after you're at James's place and you get the bad news on your taxes, come to my place and get drunk. Yeah.
And you get drunk twice as fast because you got the 2-for-1 happy hour at the quarter day.
Well, for most people, April 15th is the day you reclaim your forced savings from the IRS, right? So for most people, Americans, it's a check in the mail. So come celebrate and blow it all at the quarter deck. We'd appreciate it.
I love it. And yeah, guys, make sure you remember every episode. Oh yes, the killer desserts, man. I love the key lime cheesecake. Our guy Joel, and we got Russian spammers. It's like, hey, you guys have enough going on in Russia right now. What are you doing? What are you doing spamming our show?
Yeah, they're hacking in everywhere.
Listen, I heard you guys are very popular in Ukraine. A lot of people love the 5 rounds Frank Zaffere Donno, Walker, they love it in Ukraine, so we have to monitor the show throughout. I guess I'm glad you're here.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Yeah.
I might be a Russian spy. You have no idea. You
Might
don't
be
know
the
that.
Yuri. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So, I want to remind everybody that every episode of this show is served by the Quarterdeck Seafood Bar and Neighborhood Grill. Every episode of Donno Daily as well. Guys, we've talked about some of the food, and I just came from Jamaica, and so I'm on a real jerk chicken kick, and they got the jerk chicken sandwich at the Quarterdeck. It's really good, man. The fresh seafood at the Quarterdeck is so good. The fresh mahi-mahi, fresh tuna, salmon. I like to build my own poke bowl. The sushi is really good. The buffalo shrimp is to die for. The chicken wings are great as well. And we talked about it, tax season, whether you're celebrating or not celebrating, go out there and enjoy the 2-for-1 happy hour. 2-for-1 drinks all day, every day. It's always happy hour at the Quarterdeck, and the beer is always so cold. If you want to check their menu before you go or find the location nearest to you, you can visit them on the web at quarterdeckrestaurants.com. The Quarterdeck, come for the food, stay for the fun. And make sure you follow the show Twitter account. You see Frank proudly displays it there at 5_MMA. That's where you find the show on Twitter. You can find James. Of course, he mentioned his Twitter account, James Walker NFL. Follow me. I got to point the proper way. It's always backwards here. Whatever. You see it. At Alex Donno. Donno spelled Donno. And we will talk to you guys next week on another episode of 5 Rounds on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.